Today's episode of Desertwood Days with Kathy Blaze is sponsored by Cole Obarts Entertainment, providing amusement, celebration, and distraction since 2013. To find out more, visit us on the web at www.coleobartsent.com.
Welcome back to Desertwood Days, and I am Kathy Blaze. We have a special guest for you today, and we hope that you like clowns as much as we do. We'd like to introduce you to our next guest, Mr. Jerome Hill.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. Good to see you.
You too.
Got the red hair, the
Yes.
red nose,
I color
everything.
coordinated today.
Yes,
it was a good
you
idea
did.
to do. Yes.
Welcome, Jerome. So, Jerome,
Yes.
how's it been?
It's been, busy shows, performing. Time flies when you're making folks laugh.
Yes. So you're making people laugh, and you've been making people laugh for quite a while.
Yes, I've been a circus clown for about 10 years now.
Wow, that's awesome. So what was it that got you into wanting to be a clown?
Oddly enough, what got me into being a clown was, I always tell folks, a medical problem, actually. So this was not my first choice as a career, believe it or not. My entire life's goal was to be a professional wrestler. That's what I wanted to do in my life.
Oh, okay.
I went through some training, had a couple of health screenings, and during one of those screenings, they found a heart problem.
Oh.
And they said, you're always going to be a health risk. There's no way any right-minded promoter or booker is ever going to put you in a ring. So kind of had to reevaluate what I was going to do with myself. And just so happens that I'd been talking to my uncle, who was a clown for Ringling Brothers back in the day.
Okay.
And he said, have you ever considered the circus? And I said, no, not at all. And he explained that, well, professional wrestling, as we see it on TV, WWE, AEW, all those shows, they are a choreographed combat sport.
Sure.
So the production qualities of circus and wrestling are very, very similar. And when he pointed that out to me, I kind of thought about it some more, and he said, learn how to juggle and just see where it goes. So I found a place in Mesa that could train me. I learned in about a week, and 10 years later, I now strut around the state saying I'm the Clown Prince of Arizona.
Oh, I love that. So initially, I want to go back. What was it about wrestling that was where you wanted to go?
Oddly enough, it was the theatrics. It wasn't so much the idea of being some big meaty dude in spandex throwing people around. It really was the production and theater level of it. The pyrotechnics. Characters that they have that are larger than life. Yeah. Exactly. It was still, despite it being very sport projected, it is still antagonist versus protagonist. There's a story. It's no different from Shakespeare or the circus.
Right.
So the idea of being able to tell such a unique story sounded like so much fun to me. It's all I wanted to do.
I love that.
And then I found this. So.
Yes. So did you, when you grew up, were you close around your uncle?
Not
you know
too
what
much.
He did for a living?
Originally, no. Looking back as a kid, I saw a couple of things and was like, actually that made sense. Visiting my cousins once in a while, and him asking me if I'd ever done handstands or headstands, or if, he showed me what a hand buzzer was for the first time in my life. And as a kid, I just thought that's just what uncles did. I did not know that was just a thing he was doing. So,
because
as an
uncles
adult,
always do something to entertain the little kids.
Yeah, it's such an uncle quality. So I was like, that's just an uncle thing. That's what they do. So I didn't think about it then, but as an adult, I thought, you know what? That actually makes a lot of sense now looking back.
Yes. So what are some of you said you learned juggling.
Yes.
So what are some of the things that you have, the skill sets you have to be a clown?
Well, some would say that there's like a structure to being a clown. Some say there isn't a structure. Sure, every industry has its like natural tools of the trade, juggling, balloon animals, noses, face paint, funny hats, what have you. I think it always depends on what your strong suit is. Like I know several people who are phenomenal balloon artists. I cannot make a balloon animal to save my life, but I can juggle really well. So for me, it's juggling, it's doing magic tricks, it's making stuff disappear and reappear, it's balancing stuff on my chin, broomsticks, chairs, everything has a balance point. So stuff like that, and people getting a laugh out of going, oh, you can't balance that, like giant Swiffer pull on your chin. No, yeah, I can. Watch this. It just goes right up. So it's really what your body's willing to do and how you can make it funny for somebody else.
Mm. What do people say when you say I'm a clown?
Usually, my first response that I get is, this face. After that, I get the usual questions because unfortunately one of the more popular kinds of clowns right now are like scary clowns, which is not something that I do. So folks ask, oh, do you ever put on like scary makeup and run around and with a knife? No, never. It's not what I do. I sword fight as a clown. That is one of my comical bits that I do, but I don't do anything like Pennywise or anything like that. So those are usually the first few questions, and then folks ask, have you been to any circuses? Have you performed here or there? And the questions just get more ridiculous as they go on.
Right. So, you said you don't do the scary type stuff.
Correct.
What is it about clowns that some people are so afraid of?
So there is a psychological, it's not a theory, it's a principle called uncanny valley. It is a fear of something that looks human, but doesn't quite look human. You know what I mean? And one of the main studies behind that, I think, is like face paint. So it's you're humanoid, but there's something about it that makes you go, yeah, no. Right. So it's stuff like that. And then, of course, in the 80s, we had like killer clowns from outer space. Right. Tim Curry being the first one to appear as Pennywise the clown on TV. And
that little scary thing on the bicycle, whatever.
The Saw clown, yes. Exactly, which is more of a puppet, but it's a clown, And so then, of course, there was the re-release of it. Stephen King definitely made things rough in 2016 by doing that movie again. It really is just that it's that familiar unfamiliarity. Like when you see someone in the corner of your eye and you don't know who it is, and that part of your brain goes, should I panic right now? Who's behind me? It's basically that.
And that's a serious question because some people are seriously afraid of clowns.
Yes, chlorophobia is a very real thing. It's definitely something that I dance around as often as I can. If I'm at a show and I'm in full paint and there's a parent who really wants their kid to get a picture with me and that kid is terrified, I won't do it. I'm going to tell the parent, no, your kid is horrified right now. I'm not doing this. There are two kinds of chlorophobia. There's like clinical chlorophobia, which is the actual fear of clowns, and that's based in the uncanny valley concept. Then there's also what I call popularized chlorophobia, which is where people say they're scared of clowns because they think it's the cool thing to say. Because they'll see people in my generation, they grew up watching like Rugrats. Chucky Finster was terrified of clowns. So you grew up seeing that. So people were like, oh, Chucky was scared of clowns when I was growing up, so I should be too. So a lot of the times when people tell me, oh, I'm scared of clowns, I kind of go, are you though? Or is it something you've been kind of groomed to believe?
Right. So what are some of your most popular things that you do when you get hired to come and be a clown?
A lot of the times it's juggling. I was at the Westin in Scottsdale a few weeks ago juggling for a software expo that hired me. Usually it's juggling, that being the biggest one. It depends on if they want me to juggle balls or pins. Those are like the big two. Sometimes I'll do like knives or axes. Most of my dangerous stuff.
When do you do that?
Most of my dangerous performances are actually at the Arizona Renaissance Festival in Gold Canyon. I've been there for about 9 or 10 years now. I perform a one-man danger show out there where I juggle knives, axes. I'm also the only person in the entire state that juggles bear traps. That is
wow.
That's an expression that I get a lot. I needed a finale for the show and I wanted to do something different, and I found a place online called Three Finger Juggling that designs unique and dangerous props, and they have this discontinued list and it said bear traps. So I contacted them and said, do you still produce that? And they said, we can. And I said, cool, let me try one. And they sent me one. It's about this tall. It's a broomstick with a pair of bear traps on either side, and I just juggle that as my finale with an axe and a double-bladed knife.
So do you find yourself being a clown, I don't say 24/7?
Originally, no. But with being a clown, there comes a bit of a social burden in that you are the person that people look to when they're having a rough time, and it becomes almost instinctual. it used to be just my friends, you know. They're having a bad day, I'm going to make them laugh. But now, if I'm at a grocery store and there's a kid throwing a fit over something, if I can sneakily make that kid laugh without the parent noticing and make that parent's day a little easier,
Right.
I tend to try and do that. And it just kind of became a thing where there's almost a sort of like a, not a civic duty, but like a social duty as a clown to be a clown all the time, because so many things we deal with every day is enough to, you know, make us downtrodden and stressed out and everything. And, you know, the clown's first job is to what's called fail and survive. And that's basically the essence of being funny. And being funny makes people forget that sometimes life gets better by laughing.
So, how much of this is Jerome versus the clown?
So it used to be, well, right now it's about 90% Jerome. It used to be I would try to keep things separate, but the more I was doing this, the more I began to do it, the more of my life it became, and not for any, like, against my will or anything. It was just, it became a thing where I just wound up doing more and more things like that and doing more clown things on the regular, and it just became a new dominant personality trait. So it's mostly me right now. This is about 90% Jerome.
Okay. Again, I am, you know, being a clown, and I asked the same question about Santas. I mean, are they Santas even when it's not even on that season? So when do you get a break from being a clown? I mean, or is that just your personality?
It's a lot more personality now, but as far as like professional appearances, most of my breaks come over the summer. Usually because a lot of the times if I get hired for an event or something, it's usually outside, and those drop drastically over the summer because of how hot it gets here. I'll still take the occasional, you know, indoor show here and there if there's air conditioning, but usually I take the summer as an opportunity to just take a minute, step back, work on new material, recharge, let me, if I've gotten any like nagging aches and pains or injuries over the season that I perform in, definitely give that time to rest. I visit doctors to make sure everything's working right before I go right back into it in the fall.
Right. You're also a singer.
Yes, I am.
Tell us about how you got into that.
So when this is a little back when I was trying to get into wrestling, I have always been heavily influenced by aspects of like rock, heavy metal, and pop as well.
We can tell that
yeah,
with the
I'm a kind of a dead
here.
giveaway here. You know, like my personal hero is Paul Stanley from Kiss, and I always wanted to try and implement some of that rock persona, that big, larger than life style into how I performed, and that was what I wanted to do as a wrestler. It didn't work out. Now as a clown, I do the same thing. So a lot of my performances where I get to sing are the ones that I actually write myself. I do run my own circus show called Gaslight Circus, where it's me and about 12 other people, and we'll do like full narrative theatrical productions, and those are ones where I get to fit in to sing, and doing those helped me hone my range and find what works and didn't work. The first time I sang was actually a show I wasn't even supposed to be at. I was performing downtown at a bar called the Lost Leaf, where I was visiting some performers who were there, and one of their performers dropped out, and they were desperate to fill the slot. And I'm wearing like, I'm not dressed to perform. I am in like combat boots, I think like cargo shorts and an Under Armour shirt, and they were like, Jerome, can you please do you have anything you can do? And I had 3 juggling clubs in the trunk of my car, and I said, okay, I can juggle. Do you need something else? And they said, can you give us one more? And I said, let's try to sing. Why not? This could be that time where I can make this work. And so I sang what's now one of my go-to songs, which is I'm Still Standing by Elton John. And it just worked. So I just kind of stuck with that and explored other ranges. You know, Paul Stanley, of course, I can't hit that range. He is way too high up there. There's certain things in like Michael Jackson's range I can also do, because I also loved his entire aesthetic as a performer. He was very circus and carnival inspired with some of his jackets and stuff, so mine are also similar too. But Elton John, that kind of like British pop, new wave kind of like aspect is where I fit the best.
Okay. So I know you brought some media for us also today. Let's take a look at some of that, and we'll be able to see what all you talking about today.
So the first one here is one of the most popular singing photos that I have, which is the explosion happening behind me, which was not planned at all. I was singing a song called The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance, and the idea for the set was I was going to sing, and behind me other performers were going to run up behind me, and they were going to do performance stuff, and it's a very free form kind of set. So when we do that, we would have free range of creativity on what the performer wants to do. So the performer behind me, his name was Sean, wanted to do fire. So he was in the back and he dipped this staff with 2 wicks on either side and some fuel, and he went back there, and typically with a fire staff, when you've lit it up, you want to shake off the excess fuel because you don't want it to go flying out to the audience or anything or hit a curtain or something. So Sean just kind of rubbed his hands together like this and made it spin it off. And when you do that, it causes a huge cloud of fire. And I was not prepared at all for that to happen. I just felt I'm in the middle of the chorus and I feel this big wave of heat behind me and the crowd's going like this. Whoa! And I'm thinking, I'm about to combust right now. This jacket is not flame safe. It was polyester. It was a polyester coat that I would have, thankfully nothing touched me, but had that caught me, I would have gone up so quick. That's my latest show. I was at Phoenix Fan Fusion with Gaslight Circus. We did 2 sold out shows, about 500 people per show. I performed about 3 or 4 times, and got my newest jacket where I have that very Michael Jackson inspired vibe of a marching band jacket, and I think I stood in that pose for a good 30 to 45 seconds because the crowd will cheer when I do that, and I'll try and see how long, if I can outlast them or if they can outlast me.
And that's on your chin, right?
Yes, that is on my chin. This was at Desert Ridge earlier this year. I was promoting the Renaissance Festival where I'm not the Clown Prince of Arizona there. I'm Jerome King of the Fools because I don't do any clown aesthetic there. I do jester stuff. So that's me holding the axe, the knife, and the bear trap that I juggle at the Renaissance Festival. And fun thing about that photo is I was actually in the hospital the day before. I had just finished performing an entire weekend at the festival, and it was super hot out. And usually before a festival weekend, I'll drink 2 or 3 gallons of water to stay as hydrated as I can. And then after the show, I'll eat dinner, and then I'll rehydrate, and then I'll go to bed. Well, I hadn't gotten the chance to rehydrate yet, and I just happened to eat some food that did not agree with me, and I woke up with food poisoning.
Oh my goodness!
And I was throwing up. It was disgusting, and I pretty much dehydrated myself the rest of the way. It got so bad that my husband Balder called the ambulance, and they showed up and said, "Oh, we're gonna check your heart rate and stuff. It's probably just food poisoning." They hooked me up and said, "Stand up for a second." And when I stood up, my heart rate dropped and I collapsed.
Oh my goodness.
So I was in the hospital right after that. And as soon as I was done, I was like, I'm not canceling this show. I've tried to get Desert Ridge for years. They were going to put me on the big screen and everything. So I was like, doesn't matter. If I feel terrible, I'm doing this.
I'm glad you mentioned that because, that's one thing that people take for granted. Hydrating yourself is so important.
Yeah, we live in the desert.
Right. And I know I'm bad at it.
Oh, I'm still not good. I still have my days where I'm like, I know I'm not drinking enough water right now. This was, I think, 2016 when I had black hair for a little while. I was doing more knife juggling more regularly. This was a show, I think the show was called Requiem. It was kind of a Phantom of the Opera parody we did, where we were doing more bladed stuff. We were doing more sword fighting. We're moving away from fire stuff because just before that had been me almost blowing up. So we thought, maybe we should reel back some of the fire. And since November of last year, I've retired from fire performing. I don't do it anymore. But doing bladed stuff has always been a really great crowd pleaser. That's just part of my office. I was doing some in-house stuff when COVID was running rampant. And I didn't really have any shows, so I was recording stuff at home, putting together new promotional kits, new demo reels, and I just
keeping yourself out there.
Yeah, and just kind of decided to get a shot where I've got some of my King of Fools banners, and then behind me are my 3 or 4 of my awards where I've been, Best Performer of the Year in Glendale, Grand Huzzah Performer of the Year at the Arizona Renaissance Festival, and the other one is Best of 2016 in Phoenix.
Okay, congratulations.
And thank you. And this was a gig that I was surprised became as as free as it was. It was in Scottsdale for a little while called Candytopia. It was this immersive Willy Wonka-esque experience, and they wanted some kind of grandiose host, a Wonka, Gene Wilder and they didn't know what they were getting when they hired me. So they let me run with so much stuff. So I had clown noses, hats, all this stuff. They began to call me Jerome the Master of Fun at that place, and I was working there right when the pandemic hit. So that's what closed it down. We tried to reopen 6 months after the state shut down, and we made it, I think, 3 weeks before we got closed up again.
Okay.
And that's my main outfit for the Renaissance Festival. Or, well, my former main outfit. I've actually recently retired this getup. I'll be debuting an entire new costume this year. I think the only thing that I'm keeping is the orange bowler hat is still my original thing. And I have a set of...
I like the whole look.
Thank you. And I have a set of orange clown noses just for the Renaissance Festival. So I try and color coordinate everything, like the balls I'm juggling are the right color, pants, shirt, vest. You can see the bear trap is hanging off my hip. I used to have it out in the open, but then, at the festival there's like, 10, 12,000 people a day. And sometimes folks get grabby. Oh, what's this? And next thing you know, a kid's trying to run off with the bear trap hanging off your belt. So stop doing that.
Wonderful. Those were very nice. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
So I'd like to ask one question.
Sure.
For someone that's looking into wanting to be a clown, what advice would you give them?
Try everything. There's kind of a structured way you can do it. You can go find a trainer, you can find a coach, you can find a teacher. But what I always tell folks is, are you getting into being a clown because you're funny? And if you're funny, do you think you're funny because you're funny or because you're good at telling jokes? Because there's a difference. Anybody can walk up to somebody and say a terrible joke. Like what's the opposite of irony? Wrinkly. Anybody can do that, but being able to naturally have a personality that can make somebody laugh and smile, sometimes that has to come out naturally. Sometimes you have to find that clown in yourself before you can show everybody else that clown. And there is by the book ways you can do it, but for me it's always been a very natural progression.
And I think it's something you have to be passionate about also.
Absolutely.
Just from the stories you were mentioning about with the child that was upset, or family and friends that's having a bad day, and you feel it's your job to brighten their day.
Exactly. And it becomes kind of a thing that just exists in the back of your mind all the time is, can you use that part of your personality to make somebody have a better day or smile or laugh, even when you're off stage,
Because people will expect it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The last person who was the Clown Prince of Arizona was Ladmo from Wallace and Ladmo back in the day. And Ladmo had a phrase that he always said, it gets better, which is like the heart of that role as being the Clown Prince, is to remind people that it does get better. You could be having a terrible day. Your job could suck. You could be having just the roughest time and being stressed out and just ready to, tear yourself apart. But you have to believe it gets better. And sometimes to remember it gets better, you have to, laugh and smile once in a while.
That's a good antidote to use in any part of our lives.
It gets better.
Yes.
Has to.
Yeah. So where can our audience find you?
So my next appearance is going to be on October 28th. I'm doing a charity show for the Arizona Rec Center for the Handicapped. That'll be in Phoenix, not too far from here, actually. And then in November, Gaslight Circus will be returning with our new production that I'm currently writing called The Masked Clown, which is a Zorro parody. So it's going to be kind of like a little bit of a comical nod to the old swashbuckling film genre that we don't really see anymore, Pirates of the Caribbean, Zorro, stuff like that.
Okay. So they want to contact you. Where can they find you on social media?
Can find me on social media, anywhere on Facebook under Gaslight Circus, of course, Jerome Hill on Instagram, or Gaslight Circus on Instagram. I also have a website, which is gaslightcircus.com.
Awesome. It was such a pleasure having you here with us today. We didn't get to squeak the nose.
This one doesn't honk, actually. This is more of a harder one. So.
That's okay. Well, thank you for joining us here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me so much.
And thank you for joining us here today at Desertwood Days.